So I'm just going to go right at it this morning, okay? This past week we marked the anniversary of September 11th. We've heard the news of yet another school shooting, and we've witnessed a public assassination. Today we are reminded in the church calendar that we are approaching the Feast of the Holy Cross, and I think we cannot help, or at least I cannot help, but hear about these events echoed and perhaps clothed in the voice of the prophet Jeremiah. The one who said, "I looked, and lo, this earth was laid waste and void, and the heavens, they had no light. It's dark. I looked on the mountains, and lo, they were quaking, and all the hills, they moved to and fro." In other words, friends, things are not stable. And the darkness of these events, and perhaps the darkness around us, continues to deepen. This is the language of dismay. Jeremiah is telling those who hear him what it feels like when sin, when violence, and when pride unravel not just societies, but creation itself. And we are aware of this. We are intimately aware of this. I would say that some of us cannot escape this. And that's because we have continued to encounter it on college campuses. We've seen it in elementary schools. We've watched it on mass transit. We encounter it in the news. And most profoundly, we know how war reshapes creation itself. It literally moves mountains. And so, Jeremiah doesn't flinch in telling the truth. Human sin leaves wreckage in its wake. He speaks of a people skilled in doing evil, but who do not know how to do any good. And that's chilling to me, because it suggests that somehow destruction can become second nature to us. That violence is in fact learned, and if it's learned, then it's taught. And if it's taught, then it's somehow repeated and handed down. And I can't help but notice that Jeremiah sees the fact that it is not just the individuals, it's not just individuals who suffer this, but that creation itself suffers from it as well. The earth grieves. Go back to Genesis, right? The ground cries out as it receives the blood of Abel. If you remember the cross, right? The heavens dim. Birds flee. And this is a cosmic vision of collapse. And what is more, the sins of God's people do not remain their own. They ripple out into the world. And so, when we remember events like September 11th, when we witness, and dare I say, when we consume these new acts of violence that we cannot escape, Jeremiah helps us name a truth, friends. This is what sin does. It tears apart lives. It rends communities and even the created order. It's chaotic, and we feel that. And if it goes unchecked, it will leave us in ruin. And yet, in the same service, in this same moment in time, when we receive that testament from Jeremiah, that prophecy from Jeremiah, the church gives us another word to ponder. We hear the words of Jesus in Luke's Gospel, where Jesus says to those around him, "Which one of you, having 100 sheep and losing one of them, does not leave the 99 in the wilderness and go after the one until he finds that which is lost?" Or again, what woman, having 10 silver coins, if she loses one of them, does not light a lamp, sweep the house, and search carefully until she finds it? I don't think that the contrast between these two readings could be sharper. Jeremiah sees a people that are undone, a world around him that is in ruins. And then Jesus tells us of a God who refuses to let even one life be lost. Right? The shepherd doesn't shrug off the missing sheep. He doesn't look at the 99 and go, "Oh, well." And the woman does not say, 9 coins are enough. Instead, there is this truth that God searches, and that God searches relentlessly. God seeks us in the wilderness. He tries to find us in the rubble, comes to us in the shadows, and meets us in the brokenness of our own choices. And if we take that, right, then there is indeed joy. There's not just relief. This is not just resignation, but there is joy in heaven, joy before the angels. And so I think that these readings do not contradict one another. I think they kind of belong together. Jeremiah shows us the consequences of sin, this real, devastating, life-altering reality of wickedness. And then Luke shows us the character of God. One who is merciful, one who is searching, one who redeems, one who rejoices. And dare I say that without Jeremiah's lament, Luke's parables might be seen as a banal attempt at consolation, glossing over sin, or worse, becoming indifferent to it. But without Luke, Jeremiah could seem like despair without hope. Together, I think there is a wholeness that they present. Sin is real. Sin is pervasive. But grace redeems what lays in ruins. It restores what is lost, and it brings joy out of desolation. Joy is not, happiness, right? But it's sadness and happiness together. And it can do this It can do this, but we must turn to something that we don't always want to remember. Must turn to the cross. This sign that is lifted high, as the song says, where the sorrow of Jeremiah and the mercy of Luke are bound together in Christ's redeeming work. I think on the cross we understand the desolation behind Jeremiah's words. Christ is crucified, the sky darkens, the earth quakes, the sins of the world converge in an hour, and the furies, a host of furies, betrayal, violence, injustice, mockery, cruelty, murder, those forces undo the Son of Man. But at the very same moment, in an instant, we see the parables of Luke somehow fulfilled. The shepherd is indeed raised up in seeking the lost. The woman has set her lamp on a stand, not under a bushel basket, driving back the shadows until the smallest coin is found. In Christ lifted high on the cross, God has gone to the uttermost end of human sin and suffering, and he will not let us go. Cross is both judgment and mercy, you see. Judgment because it shows what sin does. And mercy because it shows what God does in response. Thus, in the face of terrorism, we cannot forget the words of Jeremiah. I know some of you can still see the towers fall in your mind. The devastation was real. The grief, legitimate. The ruin, undeniable. And as hard as it may be, we must remember Luke as well, that God is still searching. In recent months, God is still searching for those swept away in the floodwaters of the Guadalupe. God is still searching for those who are ensnared in violence, even for those who have become agents of ruin itself. But the Good Shepherd does not cease in his search, nor the woman in her lamplighting, until every shadow is pierced and every soul called. And we know all too well that in the face of school shootings, Jeremiah's words cut uncomfortably close. Confronted as we are with a society that has become plagued by inertia and overly familiar with the patterns of harm, more readily than we are to concentrate our very best efforts in the critical work of holding both grief and resolve close enough for there to be transformational action. Luke's words reveal in that moment that every child's life is of immeasurable worth, one that will be searched for by God until found. And in the face of public assassinations, I think we can confess Jeremiah's truth, that violence corrodes the life of nations. And yet somehow we cling to the promise that the Good Shepherd will not let even one who suffers, who dies, be abandoned in the wilderness of death and despair. On the cross, these two realities come together. We see the very worst of humanity and the very best of God. And as Christians, we live in a world where both Jeremiah and Luke are real. We tell the truth about sin, or at least we should, about the devastation it wreaks. And I think we are to be called to not minimize what we encounter, not to gloss over it, to explain it away. And that itself is a witness. But we are also in the same vein to tell the truth about God, about a love that will not quit, about a mercy that searches every ruin, and a joy that erupts in heaven when the lost are restored. That's Luke's gift to the church. And I think most profound of all of us are urged to carry the cross in the sight of all, the sign of both truths in this world. The cross is not, it's not a denial of sin. It is the assurance that sin will not have the last word. The cross is not a denial of death. It is the promise of life beyond death. And so, as we approach the feast of the Holy Cross, as we remember September 11th, 24 years, as we grieve the reality of so many school shootings, as we lament the hatred that leads to assassination, I think we have to hold both of these readings together. I think we must sit with Jeremiah and look honestly at ruin. And then we must have the courage to lift our eyes to the cross, to the one there, who comes seeking and finding, and who will carry us home. And maybe in doing so, maybe in holding that together, those tensions, we will have the will to proclaim the mystery of faith. That Christ has died, that Christ is risen, and that Christ will come again.